All right. So we have just finished learning the Shar HaAkudim, part of the Etz Chaim, that is the world of the bound. And at this point in the evolution of creation, where we are talking about the initial stages of creation. So if you remember, we went from Ein Sof, or Ein Sof. There is the infinite essence of the Creator, which we don't talk about, we can't talk about, it's too beyond. And our story begins not with the essence of the Creator, but with the light that emanates from the essence of the Creator. And the light that emanates from the essence of the Creator, that's what we call Or Ein Sof. It's not the Ein Sof, the infinite itself, but it's the Or Ein Sof. It's the light that emanates from the infinite. And we began this journey, the Arizal explained that the light of the infinite, the Or Ein Sof, contracted in what we call the Tzimtzum and created an empty space, an empty void. And into that space, the light, the Or Ein Sof, came back into the void, creating two types of light. One is called the light of the spheres, or Igulim, and also light that emanated in a straight line, or what's called a kav, in a kav. And so we have two ways that the light is illuminating this empty space, this void. One is called through the light of spheres, spheres within spheres within spheres within spheres. And we also have the light of the kav. And the Arizal says most of our focus is on the light of the kav. This is what the Zohar is talking about. And our relationship to the Creator is through the light that is emanating through this kav. And so imagine that this light is flowing into the void, into this halal, and does not reach the other side, but stops a certain point down. And that is the infinite light that is within creation. And the Arizal says that the next stage is that this infinite light now becomes the soul of the first created being, if you will, which we call Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon, the Arizal says, is part creator, but it's also part creation. It's that kind of in-between place. And so the infinite light is like the soul of Adam Kadmon. And Adam Kadmon reaches from the top of creation all the way to the bottom. Meaning that Adam Kadmon, or what we call primary man, is essentially the soul of creation. It is a being that is totally divine, but exists within creation, and all of creation emanates from it. Emanates from it. And the way to understand what Adam Kadmon is, so the Baal Shem Tov explains that it's called the Machshava Kduma. That what does Adam Kadmon really represent? Adam Kadmon represents the primordial thought. Meaning, Ein or Ein Sof was just infinite vast, but now Adam Kadmon is now the thought or the desire to create the world, or to create all the worlds, to create all of reality, to create all of the universes. This is what Adam Kadmon essentially represents, the Machshava Keduma, or what's called the primal thought. Meaning, if you let go of the physical, technical aspect of the kav and insight and whatnot, but if you just kind of like let your mind just be a little bit more fluid, what is Adam Kadmon? Adam Kadmon is the mind of the Creator inside that now wants to create, meaning everything in creation that ever was, that ever will be, is now in this inception point of what's called Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon represents everything that will ever exist in creation from the very beginning till the very end. Okay? And so this is Adam Kadmon. And so now, like, the divine mind is, okay, now how do I begin this process of bringing creation into existence? And so we said that we don't begin from talking about the mind itself, the mind of Adam Kadmon, which we said is the karkafta all the way down to the ears. This is kind of the level of Ab, the level of Hashem's name expanded with Yuds, yeah, which, if I have to remind everybody what Ab is, then it is this. Ab. Okay, this is our Ab, yeah? This is Ab. Why is that called Ab? Quick recap. 72. It has the numerical value of 72. And we said this is the, this represents the mind of the Creator. Okay? This is the mind of the Creator. The divine mind. Meaning if we're relating to God as teacher and student, yeah? So imagine a 4-year-old kid hanging out with Albert Einstein. Okay?
Am I the kid or Albert?
So imagine the 4-year-old kid, right? Imagine Albert Einstein, right, and his mind, right? Or Stephen Hawking, or whoever, someone that is just absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah? They're brilliant because when they're relating to themselves, they're absolutely brilliant because they think in a certain way, they operate in a certain way, their mind works in a certain way. But if you're talking to a 5-year-old kid, there's no way that 5-year-old kid, the mind of that 5-year-old kid is able to understand the mind of Einstein, the mind of Stephen Hawking. So that's like the Ab of Adam Kadmon, we don't go there. It's like we're not gonna, so like in the same way that Albert Einstein relative to a 5-year-old kid, it's like, it's not, we can't even compare like us to God. That's not even a comparison. It's like Albert Einstein, like relative to a frog. It's just not like, you can't compare the two. So the Arizal says the Ab, we don't go there. We don't go there. That's not something that we can relate to. What can we relate to? How can that 5-year-old kid relate to Albert Einstein? Only through the way that he is now relating to the child. And now Einstein has to speak to the child. He can speak to the child. He can play with the child. He can try and take what he has in his mind and now express that to the child. Okay? And so that's what we call the world of Sag. That's the world of Sag. Which we said in the world of Sag, we have 4 levels. Well, I'll purposely leave out the first level, which is the eyes, but our story starts from the ears, nose, and mouth. Yeah? Here, you know what, we'll just put these, we'll put them right there. Ears, nose, and mouth. Meaning there's light now, so that the machshava k'duma, the primal mind of the Creator, we can't go into God's mind. That's not the place that we're in. But what we can do is see how does God begin to relate to us. That's called the light emanating out of Adam Kadmon, meaning how does God want to express himself? And so the very basic way is that we have three types of emanations. One is light that emanates from the ears, light that emanates from the nose, and light that emanates from the mouth. Now the light of the ears and the light of the nose were still so high, meaning it's an expression of the Creator, that there's no possibility for kalim, there's no possibility for vessels. Because in order for Albert to hang out with a 5-year-old, he has to talk the language of a 5-year-old. Yeah? You have to come down to the level of the receiver in order for them to be able to have some type of relationship, some type of communication. Or you get what usually happens like in modern day classrooms where the teacher is talking, and the students are all, making paper airplanes and spitting, what are they called? Spitballs at one another, right? They don't care about what the teacher's saying. Why not? Because they have no idea what he's talking about. He's talking, and they have they can't relate to him. Yeah? In psychology and NLP. It's still really good, but it's called Ormaki, but that's not the point. The point is that we want there to be some type of connection. There's no relationship, right? The child does not feel, the student does not feel a connection to the teacher because I have no idea what he's talking about. I like my friends. Why? Because we're talking the same language. So in order for there to be communication between one and another, there has to be kalim. A kali, a vessel, allows for the light to be internalized. Meaning if I'm trying to explain a concept to you, I have to explain it in such a way that you have a kli to be able to receive it, to be able to understand it, to be able to chop it, to be able to comprehend it. When you comprehend, when you understand, that's something called a zivug, and that makes you feel really good. That's really good. And so it's one thing to know, math or history, right? But to be able to know the Creator, that's awesome. And so Hashem creating the world, so wanting to be able to allow his light to be experienced. So you need kalim. You need for the created being, right, for that student to be able to understand God. But at the level of the light of the ears, the light of the nose, God's talking, but I don't understand. There's no kalim, there's no possibility of kalim. And so the only level that we begin this process of creating vessels, meaning the ability for us to be able to relate to God, to experience Hashem, is through the light that emanates from the mouth. Is through the light that emanates from the mouth. So just basically, right, there's light emanating from the ears, too high. As far as I'm concerned, it's infinite light, it's beyond me. The light emanating from the nose, as far as I'm concerned, infinite light, it's beyond me. But the light that emanating from the mouth now is infinite light now that can begin to create the vessels.
But there's still going to be many different levels within the...
All right, we're keeping it basic. Basic. We're keeping it basic. We're keeping it basic.
Yeah,
We just want to keep it basic. Maybe questions at the end. We want to keep it basic because this is a review. And so if you can just leave today being able to say, okay, I know what Tzimtzum is. I know what Adam Kadmon is. I know what the lights of Achaf, Ozen, Chotem, Peh, ears, nose, mouth, and the process of creating the vessels. Because the process of creating the vessels is the light that is emanating from the mouth. And we said when the light that emanates from the mouth, there was light that was mixed in with all kinds of, with basically two different types of light. There were always called the refined part of the light, and there's the coarse part of the light. There's the refined part of the light, and there's the coarse part of the light. And this process of the light emanating from the mouth, emanated from the mouth, meaning now that there is some type of expression. The machshava k'duma, the mind of Hashem, is now thinking of how to create the world in a way that it will be able to receive the light. And now the or is emanating out. And what happens is the light that emanates out of the mouth now begins to go back into the mouth, leaving behind the coarse part of that light. I don't know if you got up to the classes, but there's the refined light and there's the coarse light. Both of them were all one. It emanated out of the mouth. And then the refined light, because it was so refined, it was able to go back into the mouth, leaving behind the coarse light. And we use the metaphor of making arak. Yeah? Have you ever made arak before? Any type of alcohol? You have the mash, right? And the mash contains within it the alcohol plus the juice of the fruit that you were distilling. And it's all kind of mixed in together, the water and the alcohol together. So how do you separate the alcohol from the water? Yeah? You heat it up, and then it all turns to steam and begins to rise. And then in the distiller, there's these tubes with cold water. It cools the water, and it turns back to liquid and falls back into the pot. But the alcohol has a higher boiling temperature, and so therefore it continues, it stays in the steam mode and goes back and goes out into the bottle. And so that's the process of separation, birur, the alcohol from the water. That's how you make alcohol, right? So think of the same thing. The light emanating from the mouth was a process of separating this refined light from the coarse light. Now this coarse light is left there. And the way to kind of understand this is thinking about, even though we're talking about 10 sefirot, which means 10 unique faculties, 10 unique attributes. This is called Olam Ha'akudim. It's still called the world of the bound. Why? Because all of the light was all together. Meaning that every individual attribute did not have its own personal expression. It did not yet have its own kli, its own vessel to express itself. Meaning all of the kochot, all of the faculties, all of the attributes, all of creation, everything that would be in creation, it's still in that seed that is not yet expressed because it yet does not have its own individual kli. They're all in one kli. So the light of the bound, Olam HaAkudim, where we say all 10 lights were all contained in one vessel, is all of the diversity of creation. Every living being, from the very beginning to the very end, are all united in this one seed of potential. Meaning that at this point, meaning if we were going to meditate on what is the light of Akudim, the light of Akudim is where the 10 Sefirot, which are the 10 main master components that will create all of the diversity, all of the colors, the taste, the sounds, everything that exists in the universe and all the universes, all of that was contained in one kli, meaning there was no diversity, there was no multiplicity, but it was just one single point of expression. So think about it like the seed of creation. Everything within that seed, everything within creation everything that would exist, that will ever exist, is contained in that light that emanates from the mouth. Yeah? So if you take a seed, there's all the information, there's everything about that particular fruit, that particular thing within the seed itself. You don't see the fruit, you don't see the expression of what that is. It's just one single unified potential. Meaning the 10 sefirot that are emanating from the mouth. Think about that moment that you thinking about if I could take all of creation, everything in existence, and bring it back to one seminal point. This is not Or Ein Sof. It's not the infinite, where there is nothing other than Hashem. But think of Olam Ha'akudim, the world of the bound, as creation existing but in potential. It exists, it has emanated, but there is no personal, unique, individual expression. There's no stars, there's no sun, there's no angels, there's no anything. But all of that exists in that potential state. That's what it's called, the 10 sefirot that are existing within one kli. Again, kli, vessel, always means expression. Always means expression. And so what is the kli expressing? It contains within it all of the different possibilities of creation. Yeah? So let's stop there. I'll ask questions, and then we'll add another piece. You know what? I'll ask another piece. If you have the questions, write them down, because I just want to add another thing in before we actually get into it. We'll do the questions, and then we'll do the meditation. The light emanates out, and it returns back to the mouth, leaving behind a coarse light. And the way to understand that, imagine as if the Creator has all of these possibilities of expressing Himself. And so the light emanates out, and it's just one singular, it's just like the essence, like the soul. But then as it returns to the mouth, it leaves behind a little piece of itself. It leaves behind a little piece of that light. And so you can imagine that the light that emanates out is the Or Ein Sof, it's the light of Hashem. But then as it returns back into the mouth, what's left behind is that coarse light. And that coarse light is you and me. And all of the potential for creation. That's what's left behind. Meaning that we were all once upon a time completely unified and absorbed in the infinite light of the Creator, and that through this process of the light emanating and then returning, it left behind a piece of it that would become creation. What is that piece that was left behind? It's that piece of the divine that would become creation. That's you and me. So there was this process of the light emanating out in order to reveal you, in order to reveal me. Whereas before it was just God, and we were, so to speak, absorbed in that infinite unity and oneness. But then as the light was expressed out, in that thought was the thought of every living creature, of every aspect of creation that would ever exist. And that emanated out, and then God, so to speak, retracted Himself and left us behind, left the potential behind. And so now this is the seed that was, so to speak, planted in order to allow creation to exist. And so a part of us, so we were, so to speak, united with God, we emanated out, and then God, so to speak, pulled a part of himself back and left a part of himself that would become you and me. That's what we call the Rishimu. That's what we call the imprint of light that was left over. That within creation, there's an imprint of light. There's an aspect of godliness within all things. Again, but at this stage, there's no kli, and so there's no individual expression. There's no me, there's no you. There's no trees, there's no rocks, there's no mountains, there's no cosmos, there's no angelic beings, there's nothing being expressed in reality, but the light of the mouth, the light of Akudim, the bound, is all of reality, all of creation in this one seminal seed point of potential. And it is only after when the light of the eyes emanate that will actually come into the kalim themselves. But this is the process of creating the kalim. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
When you say the seed, that's the light that's coming out of the mouth that retracts back and it leaves the sparks of the 10 Sefirot. That's the seed that creates all of us, or is the seed before Adam Kadmon
was contracted? Now Adam Kadmon is the first kind of thought of creation. Having everything and all of its details in mind, and the entire kind of history of the cosmos and everything in it and every single detail, and every single time you fell and you scratched your knee and got a boo-boo, everything, every different aspect was all contained within Adam Kadmon, and so that was Adam Kadmon, and then the light being expressed gave the possibility for all of those, for all the potential to exist afterwards. First there was the thought of having it all existing, and then there was the process of expressing that. That's why it's called through the mouth, because the mouth is a vehicle for expression. And so Adam Kadmon is, so to speak, expressing his thoughts. An expression of thought included everything that would ever be in creation.
Two questions, and maybe they're related. So I don't think we saw with the ears and nose that you have light being withdrawn again, like you're saying with the mouth, that there was light that went back.
That was chapter 3.
So they went back
4 or 5.
in ears and nose? It went out and back?
Yes.
The same way as mouth? Okay.
They emanated out.
Yeah.
You didn't see those classes, but they emanated out.
Yeah.
And then when they began to return back into the mouth, there was light that was left over.
Talking about the ears and the nose.
What?
Not the mouth. Not talking about the mouth.
The light of the mouth. The light of the mouth.
I'm saying with the ears and the nose also withdraw back.
No. Only from the mouth. When we're
Okay,
talking about
so
the world of
I'm asking why it's
Akudim,
different.
when we're talking about the world of Akudim, we're only talking about from the world of the mouth. World of Akudim, which means the bound.
Right.
What does that mean? Akudim means that there are 10 lights, one vessel. 10 lights, one vessel. So imagine there's one vessel and there's only one light. There are 10 lights that are emanating into that vessel.
But we also we talked about that with the ears as well, where it was 5 partsufim, which contained.
That's
the
still
text.
light, but that's still light. There was no vessel at that point. There was 5 partsufim, and that's just a different way of grouping the lights. Because we said 10 lights, 10 sefirot, can be grouped as 5 partsufim. Again, partsuf being a complete sephirotic system. Yeah? But those are only lights. There was no kalim. There was no kalim yet. Again, kalim is about expression. And so it is only from the level of the mouth, which is what we call the world of Akudim, that there were 10 lights all contained in one vessel. So imagine all of the different possibilities of creation not all being contained in one seed, not yet being able to express themselves. There's just that one thought. Meaning in the world of Akudim, Hashem thought about you. Before you were even created, Hashem was thinking about you.
Okay, so the main difference there is the vessel, the other two never connect.
Correct. They never connected, and so it never created a vessel. That's right. It created you, there was never a vessel. But now it's like all of creation exists in this one seed form, this one seed state, meaning all of the potential of creation that would ever be, all exists together, united as one. And in this place, there's no difference between you and me or anything. We're all kind of in a seed form. This is all the potential of creation. Is this making any sense? Kinda, sorta, right? Imagine wanting to create something, but not having anything to be able to create it with yet. Meaning, not only do I have to think about what I want to actually make, I have to think about all the things that I need to make in order to make that thing too. Yeah.
I got one for you.
Sure.
It's like a mushal, I think, just to sort of bring it that we existed. So, like a mirror, for example, right? In this existence of time that we're sort of operating in, right, in the manifest universe. That at the Ekudim level, you existed within time 10 billion years ago, or however long we're going to say, right? But there wasn't yet a vessel for you, even though your potential for a mirror, exactly you existed. But first, so that's just your potential, 5 billion, 10 billion, whatever it is, you exist in potential. But first, we're going to have to make atoms and then molecules and stars and things. And eventually, once we build these atoms and molecules and stars, we build this vessel, build more and more vessels until finally we have enough of a vessel, and then we can do this and this. And then at this point, the light, boom, now you're in your vessel, even though it took all that time that you were already thought about 10 billion years ago. Is that close, Rabbi?
Right. Even the atoms and everything only existed in potential.
Right, agreed.
Meaning
But
10
vessels
lights
have to be-
in one vessel
Yeah.
is the thought that Hashem has that contains within it everything that would ever exist in reality. In that one seed. Before, right, from the beginning to the very, very end, everything was in that one point. That's called 10 lights in one vessels. Meaning that all of the different attributes, all the different possibilities, which is the 10 different lights, because each light is a unique different attribute, yeah? All of them only had one expression. They did not have individual expression.
First the thought, then an expression, and then the potential.
It's right for the thought to want to create, right, and then it's the expression of that thought. That's what we call the light of the mouth. And what was being expressed was all of the possibilities of creation. Sof ma'aseh machshava tchila. Exactly. Everything that would ever be existed in this state. That's called the light of Akudim, the world of Akudim. To be able to understand that, right? So it's only God, so to speak. We don't exist yet. We're not players here. But if we wanted to like relate to Albert Einstein, we're relating to it in the sense that we can't go into the mind of God, but we can understand that God says, look, when I wanted to create you, I thought about you even before you existed. Yeah.
We say that this whole process started from the Machshava Keduma, the primordial thought of primordial man.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and this is where that gave birth to the entire seed into the process. That took place after the void, after the halal, right? So what was the catalyst and impetus to eat? If this is before the primordial thought of primordial man, what was the catalyst and impetus to create even that level, that void?
It's
To get there? Where was that source?
Sha'ala b'machshava livo alma, right? That was it was, you can kind of almost think about it as like, you're not thinking about creation yet. You're just kind of like thinking about creation.
Weird.
That's the Tzimtzum. The Tzimtzum is just to allow the possibility for creation to exist. You haven't actually thought about everything that's going to be in creation.
The Tzimtzum is the outcome of some prior process that
Correct.
dictated the Tzimtzum to happen.
Correct. What was that? The desire to create. The desire to create what? That we don't get until Adam Kadmon.
So what was that, just like a quantum fluctuation that happened in Ein Sof? It was just some...
Hashem wanted to create. Hashem wanted to create, and so the Chalal was created, the Tzimtzum happened, space was made. And so now, if you were to ask, right, God, so what do you want to create? And that's Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon is like the divine artist, right? If you, right,
Where does it start? What's wrong? What's wrong? Let's get there.
but we say, but it's like the Ratzon of the Ratzon, because Adam Kadmon, but also Adam Kadmon is considered the Keter, the Kloli of the world. Atzilut is the Chochmah of the world, Bria is Bria, right? But the Keter, the general Keter, which is the general Ratzon for creation, is usually what we consider Adam Kadmon. But again, within that desire, within the Keter is all of the details of that creation. That if you take it a step before that, it was still all ganuz, as you say, it was totally concealed. There was first the initial desire to create, and then Adam Kadmon comes along and it's like, okay, what do I want to make? And then the expression of that idea of everything that I want to do is the light of Akudim.
Right. So I guess to hone in my question, where was that initial Ratzon? If I know we can't like pinpoint a location within Ein Sof. I know there's no differentiation and separation and fragmentation within the Ein Sof, so we can't really pick it apart.
No.
But what elicited that initial Ratzon? It was just like a fluctuation of energy that just like...
Trying to climb it up.
No, you can't. If you say fluctuation, that means it was random. It's not random. It's not random. It was a conscious awakening of desire. Sha'Allah b'machshava. When did that happen? No, it's the Ein Sof or Ein Sof.
You can define a machshava within a Ein Sof?
That's what we say. Sha'Allah b'machshava livo alma. That's talking about the Or Ein Sof that initiated the Tzimtzum. That was the initial desire to create. And so Adam Kadmon now is like, what do I want to? What do you want to make? And then the expression, the light of the Akudim, is all the expression of all the details, the potential of what it is that I want to make. Yeah? Is this a little less abstract? Was this a good sikum, little general review, kind of? Without getting into all like the nitty-gritty details of how everything happened. But there's the idea of, again, so the challenge with Kabbalah is understanding it not from a physical perspective. Right? This is not like atoms and molecules and the Big Bang. It's something that is way, 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 way more abstract, way more intangible. And what we're talking about is thought, consciousness itself. So think about the Or Ein Sof. We can't say the Or Ein Sof is conscious because that would already be limiting it. But to say something that is conscious, consciousness itself is already a limitation. It's a creation. And so Adam Kadmon is kind of like the first thing that we can say, like, oh, God consciously wanted to create the world. Yeah? So Adam Kadmon represents the mind or the thought of the Or Ein Sof to create the world. And he thought about every single one of you. Thought about everything. And that becomes a very powerful meditation in creating the relationship between me and the Creator, because God is not something that is so far away now. Because from the very beginning, God was always thinking about me. And because these worlds still exist, God is still thinking about me. And if you take it a step further, that the Tzimtzum is not pshuto, it's not literal, meaning that in this state, even though now, after the fact, that we do have individual expression, we each have our own kli, and we all exist, so to speak, independently, nonetheless, nothing has changed from before the Tzimtzum than after the Tzimtzum. That just like once upon a time there was nothing but God, so too now, there is still nothing but God. Ma shayam hu sheyeh. Yeah.
Why would you meditate to arrive at these street addresses then? Like, I mean, what's the purpose to meditate to arrive at these places?
To be able to draw the light, to draw those lights into reality. The meditation of the addresses, of the names, is to be able to use my consciousness to, so to speak, activate those lights to come into creation. And that's a way that the Creator gave us in order to be able to take part in creation. So that's the reason that we have the addresses. We said all the names, all the divine names, the Baal Shem Tov says that every name is like a key. And every key is able to open up a different door. And when you open that door, you're illuminating this light. And so the classical meditative techniques is to meditate on the names themselves, knowing which key opens which door, yeah, and then being able to take part in downloading and streaming those lights. Whereas from the Baal Shem Tov system, it is more about understanding these things in more psychological terms and in different aspects and characteristics of our consciousness and the way we relate to the world. So if you take, for example, we had this idea of the Or Yashar, direct light. And when the light returned, we said that's called Or Choser, or the returning light. The returning light. Yeah? We said there's 4 lights. One light was the light that emanated out originally. That's called Or Yashar, the direct light. Right? That's, so to speak, like the divine desire to create. Yeah? To be able to allow the world to express it. Yeah? But then the light began to return. And when it returned, it left a part of itself. We call that the Rishimu, the imprint of that light. Yeah? and now when the light is returning, that act of returning is called Or Choser. And now, Or Choser is the, we said that the Ari says that the nature of the direct light is to return to its source. Where the nature of the Or Choser is to go down. And so if you want to understand this it's kind of a contradiction, but that's what we said, and yeah. But if you understand it, that the Or Yashar is the light of the soul, is the divine light that always wants to be connected to the light, yeah. And it leaves the Rishimu, and the Rishimu has the same quality as the direct light, and so the imprint, which is left behind, it also wants to go home, and that's like the soul, like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. I don't belong here. Yeah? And now you have the Or Choser, which is Din, the Arizal says. The Or Choser is Din. And so what is the Or Choser Din? The nature of the Or Choser is to go down, is to be a mashpia. And The Or Choser, you can kind of think of it as like the creation of the ego, or if you want to say like the Nefesh Bahamis that says, I want to have a mission down here in this world. I want to have expression. I want to be expressed. The imprint, the Rishimu, only wants to be, I don't want to have an expression. I don't even want to exist. I just want to be with Hashem. Just let me dissipate into the transcendent universal oneness of God, and I'll be happy. Whereas the O Choser is going down, and it wants to have an expression. It wants to have an identity. And we say that those two lights meet. The Or Choser meets with the imprint, and there's called a bitush. Bitush. Bitush is like now they're pounding one another. And now there's this kind of conflict of interest, this conflict of nature between the soul and the ego. And when the ego is able to acquire the qualities of the soul, meaning of the light of the Creator, meaning the Or Choser says, no, we don't belong up there, we belong down there. So I don't want to go down there for my own egotistical expression. It's not about me, but I want to be able to bring the light of the Creator into the world. That conflict creates the sparks that create the vessel. And then the light of the Creator can be expressed individually down here in this world. What we call Dira B'Tachtonim. How do I create the expression of godliness in the world? I need the ego, which comes out of the Or Choser. It's a conscious choice to say, I do not want to live a life of egocentrism, of selfishness. I want to be in a state of, but rather use all my skills, my talents, my abilities, everything that is unique about me, in a way to be a unique expression of the Creator. But there needs to be a bitush first, because the Or Choser that's coming down, it needs to meet that imprint, and the imprint is saying, hey, remember, you're not here just to be an animal. And there's a conflict there, and there's a struggle there, and the outcome of that bitush, the outcome of that conflict, that struggle, creates the sparks that creates the vessel, and can now uniquely express the light of the Creator through that particular channel. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of? This idea of the Or Yashar, the Or Choser. I know in the Sulam's philosophy, the Or Yashar is the light of the Creator, the light of the Mashpia, and the Or Choser and the Or Choser is the light of deciding not to be an animal, not to be Ratzon Lekabel, not to just receive all the time. I also want to be like the Creator. And there is a conflict there, because now I have to actually go through some type of growth. I have to go through some type of transformation to be able to shift out of my own egotistical, animalistic nature to also become godly and to also become a mashpia. But, so we have the light of the akudim, which is the potential of creation. And then within that, we also have the beginning of the revelation of the prototype mechanism of the conflict that will eventually create the expression of the divine light. That's the relationship between the Or Yashar, the direct light, and the Or Choser, the returning light. It's the contact of those two lights. It's not the Or Yashar. The Or Yashar, think about Or Yashar as like the divine light. It's here, it's kind of setting the stage, it's building all the props, everything, and now it gets out of here. Now it just leaves you, the actor, behind. And it leaves the actor with his mentor. Yeah, the mentor is the imprint, reminding you where you come from. You're the Or Choser. The Or Choser is Din. Din is always boundaries, it's limitation, that's ego. And so there's now a contact between these different types of lights, the or choser, the returning light, with the imprint. There's this struggle between who I am and who I'm supposed to be. And the more the person struggles with that, that's where growth comes from. Growth usually is a product of struggle. Most people don't usually grow, or I should say, that there is incredible growth that comes out of challenge, that comes out of struggle. When everything is just kind of easy and flow and, don't rock the boat or anything, then you never really are able to really show what you're made out of, so to speak. And so growth and transformation is usually a product of struggle. And at this point, Hashem is like part of like the master plan of creation is to be able to create that part of you that will struggle, but to also create that part of you that has all of the proper medicine and the proper all of the wisdom and all of the knowledge and all of the ability to be able to achieve and to triumph and to win that conflict. Tov.